and Ben work together on the next 3 weeks to see what mills and propositions we can get through and complete. And, so I think we're in pretty good shape. But there is one nagging problem, and that is the judges have backlogs and they need new people. The Bar Association, who was formerly associated with direct administrative personas, they have access to justice issues. The state's attorneys will need 25 new state's attorneys, but they only got 9 vacancies filled in the governor's budget. And the Defender General always needs more help. So here we are, that's 163, a bill designed to add 2 judges. We have Judge Thomas Zone and Terry Garcon, the court administrator. So we add the 2 judges and everybody will go away happy. But they really want 3 judges and.
Do you mind if we both touch base?
Yes, please.
Sure. So for the record, Tom Zone.
In all seriousness, S-263 is an important bill, and I'd like to get more judges and get more staff and get this thing straightened out.
The thought of the 2 judges is and as you point out, Senator, if you add to one area, we need help in other areas.
Yep.
State's attorneys and Defender General, we know that there's pressures with everyone. Our thought is that if we have 2 additional judges, we're able to utilize them to strategically address backlog issues and moving forward. As we see in legislation every year, there's always new statutes that have timelines, obligations, and they're putting more onto the courts. And so even when we get beyond backlog issues, we still having additional judges will help us be addressing cases in a timely fashion, because the reality is before the pandemic we had backlogs. And so the idea is to have one of the judge positions would be a position for a northern float. And he or she, whoever's hired is not the float judge. We develop a new rotation slot, and that the slot would be for someone to be able to work up in Chittenden, Franklin, Lamoille, Washington predominantly. And they would, right now we've identified needs in the civil division. Landlord tenant's an area that there's been significant pressures on for those types of cases. We also have cases in the criminal division, so we'd be able to utilize a judge to do that and also help out in the juvenile docket in that specific court. We also have identified that there's, through discussions with legislators, that the treatment courts is an area that we don't have consistency. We don't have treatment courts in all counties. And so we have 5 treatment court dockets currently in 4 counties: Chittenden, Rutland, Chittenden, Washington, Rutland, and Windsor. And the idea would be to have another created rotation slot for someone to serve as the statewide treatment court judge. The way the treatment courts are established with their dates of hearings, it would actually work out because you have basically 1 day of hearings of a 2-week cycle. So it would be 5 days of hearings in a 2-week cycle. That judge would be able to assist in other dockets and would also be able to bring consistency through all the dockets as far as the treatment court processes. It would also allow counties that want to develop treatment courts and want to look further into those areas to have someone as the point person. The way it works now is if a judge is there on rotation and the community wants a treatment court and that judge leaves, well, that judge isn't there to continue to spearhead the effort. And you've seen that down in Wyndham. The judge who was there was interested. Subsequent judges don't share that necessarily. And so having one treatment court judge gives us that consistency, but it also does something else that's very important. And that is, it doesn't pull the judges who are currently doing treatment court from their normal docket.
Senator Ball.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you highlighting sort of the challenge. And this treatment court position, would that, in your mind, create more geographic justice for people?
Absolutely. We lose. I think that it brings the ability, if not to start a treatment court in many of the counties, to have someone who is available as a resource to help to provide to counties that might not have a treatment court, the ability to utilize treatment court strategies and processes that have been proven to work.
You're talking about a third judge.
No, this is second judge. This is the second judge. Yes.
Okay.
This is the initial two.
Let me just, my experience with treatment court, and I'm strongly supportive, obviously, of treatment courts. In Bennington, we had a domestic violence docket. That was we did reports that showed the success of that domestic violence docket. It relied on Judge Sontag, who unfortunately decided to retire. And when he retired, basically, the confidence of the state's attorney and even some of the defense bar of Bennington was such with the new judge that the treatment court soon ended. And so what was a very successful treatment court based upon a judge who had specific talents for some reason in that area and was able to do a successful job, we've lost to the state. And are you talking about any kind of treatment court?
This is for the substance abuse, the mental health.
It wouldn't be for like a domestic
It
violence.
is not, this is not a DV court, Judge.
Why can't we repeat a successful model?
Of the DV court?
Yeah.
Well, that was something that Judge Sontag had buy-in from the state's attorneys and the defense bar.
Right.
And it's just like the treatment courts we have now.
There's no judge that could do it somewhere?
I do think that we have judges who have the skill and the ability to do it.
You know, with all of our discussion about substance misuse, and obviously in domestic violence, substance misuse is part of it. But of all the crimes we have in Vermont, I suspect the most frequent violent crime is domestic abuse.
That is, what our model for treatment courts is that they generate, if you will, from the community, showing community interest, which includes the state's attorney, the defense bar, and the providers. And so if there's an entity that, or a community that wants to try to look at any type of specialty court, it comes from them, Terry and I look at it, we have evaluations, there's a process that they go through.
I suspect there'd be buy-in if they had the judge who had the talents that Judge Sontag had.
Well, I will say that Judge Sontag has extreme talents. We might not reach that level, and I'm not saying that sarcastically. As you know, he is exceptional at that topic. And in fact, next Wednesday, he is training the brand new judges in Vermont on domestic violence matters. So he comes back and does training because he is nationally recognized as an expert there. So I'll talk to him about this too.
Would you please?
Absolutely. Yeah, we communicate frequently on
Senator
education.
Hashim and then Senator Bowles.
So one thing I just wanted to clarify is, in this language, we don't have language about drug court. We don't mention a northern float or anything like that. And can you share with me that is or confirm that is the judiciary's preference to not have this legislation specifically designating that, rather that comes from?
Correct. Absolutely. We do not want a specific designation. We want the superior court positions, and then we have the ability to, as the chief superior judge, to do the rotation slots and assign to respond to the areas where we feel they're most needed. And there's changes sometimes. There used to be a position that we called it the Northeast RFA juvenile float. And so you had one judge who was assigned to doing the juvenile and relief from abuse cases in Essex, Caledonia, and Orleans County. We changed that actually 2 weeks ago. That changed because we recognized that it was more effective right now with our judicial resources to have two judges assigned to each of both two to Orleans and two to Caledonia. We were going to gain more benefits as opposed to having two other judges traveling and passing each other on Route 91. And so part-time in two different courts. So we respond like that. We do believe it's appropriate just to have superior judge.
Great, and thank you. And my second question, I'm looking at the JFO note regarding the judicial assistants, and I don't know if we got a new draft or anything, but what's the situation regarding the judicial assistants? Because there is a difference in the cost between what's on the note versus what's in the bill is introduced. And I'm sorry if you've already covered this in last testimony, but
No, we are requesting judicial assistance as part of our fiscal year 25 budget request. In terms of the judges here, it's correct that typically when you have a judge, that there's support that's necessary, and that would probably equate roughly to a judicial assistant. So I don't know if this would be in addition to the 10 judicial assistants that we've already requested in the fiscal year 25.
yeah, okay. I just want to make sure nothing is being
Yeah, well, that
missed.
would confuse, thank you, because that would confuse the appropriations committee. The bill appropriates $539,000, joint fiscal believes you need $708,000.
And if we include the big bill, it'll probably be that.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
So to the point that you made about the sort of dissolution of the court when that judge retired, would this creation of this sort of treatment court judge, do you think, help maintain a more sustainable treatment court? Because there's one person assigned to that can build trust within those?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe, and we've discussed this, we've talked to others in the industry, right? We spoke to the judges in other parts of the country. We talked to the National Center for State Courts. If you have someone who's going to be the lead in the organization for treatment courts and presiding, again, it gets rid of what I'll call the geographic disparities to the maximum extent possible. It doesn't mean we're going to have treatment courts in every county, but it means that where we do have treatment courts, they're going to look a lot more alike than what they look like now, where you have Judge A, B, C, and D, each having their own strategies and styles. And so the idea would be, we're going to put a judge in there for generally a minimum, usually 2 years rotation. That gives he or she the ability to bring things in a certain direction. Now, yes, when that judge leaves, there's going to be some changes, but change can be good. Judge A might not be getting through to certain people, but Judge B has a style or that they do. Judge B may have some ideas that are different. So that type of rotation can be used to grow things that might not have otherwise sprouted. So that can be very positive. But the benefit of this is you don't have 4 judges, each trying to do their own courts. You have one person who is the person who, again, is charged with really building the program and being that resource. Windham County has talked about a family treatment court. They'd be able to say, Judge X, you're the treatment court judge. Can we talk to you about what we're thinking of? Addison County, Bennington, any of the counties can do it. It also, I think, brings a nice point too, because when you look right now, we have Chittenden and we have Rutland with treatment courts. Addison doesn't have one. And so you have a judge in Chittenden, you have a judge in Rutland, and is it going to go to one of those 2 courts? If you have the same judge in both, in Chittenden and Rutland, I think it just makes it more consistent that a decision is going to be made systemically as to what is really the best decision here, not based just on the geography of where someone is, but where should they go, and to try to possibly regionalize them when otherwise someone doesn't have the opportunity to participate. So we reduce those geographical disparities.
If the person committed their crime in Addison County, they wouldn't be eligible, but if they went over the border in Rutland and did it, they'd be eligible.
Correct. Now,
that's kind of...
Yeah. It used to be, well, in Rutland, for instance, if someone had a DWI, I'm thinking, because I would drive over Route 4 from the Woodstock side over to Rutland, and I would think to myself, there's a line in Bridgewater where you go from Bridgewater to Killington. If someone gets picked up for their DWI 4 in front of the gondola in Killington, well, they can't go to the Windsor County Treatment Court. But if they can hold off and pull over just about 100 yards past on Route 100A, then they qualify. Something always struck me as wrong about that.
Yeah, well, they could also get a ticket from the Bridgewater Sheriff.
You've driven there.
Well, I've been there.
You've been through there.
I watched these people go 45 miles an hour through there, and I think it's 35, and I slow down and then watch the sheriff grab them because I know it's there.
That's right.
Alice Nichol warned me years ago about it. Never go to Woodstock without slowing down in Bridgewater. Talk about Georgia speed traps.
Well, those were the 2 judges that were in the bill, and we did have a 3rd judge position that we were asking for. That's not funded from the general fund, if you wanted us to address that.
No, not,
Okay.
not in this bill. I think we'd like to keep this bill clean and move over to the appropriations committee, which would then realize they need to add the two assistants. The joint fiscal has pointed out we need.
And just one more clarifying question. So the, the drug docket itself is funded by a federal grant. Is that still, would that
That's
still be correct? Okay.
Yes.
And these funds would just be for the judge's salary, health insurance, retirement? That's correct. Thank you.
Are you authorized to have an additional judge even if it's not? I mean, many agencies of state government have vacancies and they use the vacancy savings. Are you authorized for, let's say, you did get federal funding, would you need to create a new position?
Yes, all of our positions are filled. So we do need authorization from the legislature to create, like we did last year. The legislature was kind enough to create that additional position, so we do need it put there.
Now, I know I'm asking this question because Senator Kitchell's gonna ask this question. The judicial master is now a judge. So we added, did we have a bill that made, or was it in budget adjustment, where we made the judicial master a judge position? I'm not talking about, I know we did that.
The judicial master, when Rachel Malone became a judge, her position is currently vacant. So the judicial master
A
position,
vacant judicial master.
we have a vacant
Do you
judicial
want
master.
to create an additional judge, a third judge
Yes.
from the judicial master?
That's correct.
So should we do that in this bill?
Well, that's the monies that we would utilize for payment of that would not come through the general fund, but would be the CHINS reform monies from the tobacco settlement. That's what pays for the judicial master. The judicial master is not.
Yeah, but if we have to authorize, I'm fine with paying for it through tobacco settlement.
And that's certainly fine, whatever's going to work best from your perspective to highlight.
From my perspective, if we create 3 new judges, we're creating 2 new, and we're taking the judicial master and making it a judge, we might as well do it in 163.
Works for us.
That would be clean. And then in terms of the fiscal note,
Yeah,
would take into
it'll make,
consideration
and
that.
then we can get a new fiscal note. I mean, is that okay with the committee? You understand what I'm doing?
I have some concerns, okay?
Okay,
I mean, I support, the theory of 2 judges. My concern is looking at, and it's been my concern from the get-go, what are we missing? Well, JFO comes in, we're missing 2 judicial assistants. We hear from Mount Valeria, we hear from so my concern is, I know last year, or this year, when you gave us the statistics, it was 106 or 108. And these other entities don't receive their additional staff. When it comes time to process them through court, judges are all ready. But these guys are gonna say, well, we don't have the staff to do just that, So are we really gonna, I know it's great we think about clearing a docket, but are we really going to without addressing the other financial needs and positions through this other entities is my question.
And can I add on, is part of your concern that if we have 3, we're implicitly raising the bar for what the other?
We have to.
Yeah.
I believe that we have, yes.
but 1 we already have.
Yes.
We're adding 2.
But it's vacant.
We're not really adding 3. We have a vacant judicial master. Recommendation from the judiciary is that we make that judicial master position a full-time judge. So that would be it's a 3rd judge, but it's not a new, it's just a promotion.
You're correct. There's basically what is happening is a current full-time judicial officer who was working is now going to be a different judicial officer with more authority to handle a broader range. But it's not changing the fact that there is someone there. Under the statute, the chief superior judge appoints the judicial master. If I appointed someone now, those attorneys are going to be dealing with what they were dealing with before. A full judge, a full judicial officer in doing those cases.
In that one position.
In that one position. We're now covering those cases with retired judges. So we're not increasing the load. I would also say that I share your concern about point of what I call diminishing returns. There's a point where if you said to us, we're giving you 10 judges, that's overload. Right now, 2 additional judges, I don't think would be overload. I don't think that 2 judges would put us in a place where the system skews. I think that we, given where we are with timelines, given where we are when judges go on vacation, illness, the number of cases we have to process, findings time, and the balance that we're able to strike, I think 2 additional judges would give us that nice balance.
Senator, have you finished, Senator?
Not quite. So I used the 10 as an example, saying that we heard testimony from Matt Valerio, we heard testimony from John Campbell, so on and so forth. And he said, but we give you 10 judges, but if they don't have the staff, whether we give you 2 or 10, but my other question is, you had mentioned that the judicial master's position was paid through the tobacco fund. Well, how much is left in the tobacco fund, and how long can we do that?
$5.8 million. The monies are utilized pursuant to legislation for CHIN's reform work. The CHIN's reform work group is the group that is in charge of overseeing those funds. And the master position, as well as a judicial assistant in security, was paid for with those funds to about the tune of about $400,000 a year. The judge position that we'd be shifting to actually saves $130,000 a year because it's only $269,617. The CHIN's reform group did support this change. There's $5.8 million currently there. In addition, there is a mediation program that's being pursued, and when we look at the numbers and run them out, that also provides additional reform type initiatives with the monies.
But if we make this a 3rd judge position, will those monies still be able to be used for that 3rd position? It's not a judicial master no more, it's now the superior judge.
The 3rd position would be, what we would be doing is creating a statewide juvenile judge to make sure that we conform to have that judge focus on juvenile matters.
Senator Booth.
So I'm not sure if I'm correct, but it seems like you're saying it will be revenue neutral for the general fund. It might, would there be a change in how much comes from the tobacco settlement?
You're correct. It is revenue neutral for the general fund because currently the general fund does not pay for the master. And it would actually be less of an expenditure per year if you approve the judge as opposed to having the master position as currently authorized.
Got it. So let's say that the remaining funds in tobacco settlement take us for another 7 years, something like that. At that point, will we be asked to continue the position from the general fund, do you think? Or is it something that would drop off in the tobacco settlement?
I cannot say what my successor would ask for at that time. I say that because I'm not sure. I might be here in 7 years, I'm not sure. But what I do think, there's really several options. One is we come to the legislature and say, we would like you to bring this out of the general fund. We think it's important. And that would be a decision for the judiciary at that time. We also have retirements. And so the second option is that if that's not going to happen, and we're not going to come to the legislature, we would have the opportunity to allow that position to lapse. And if someone's in that position, we would be able to have a judge position and then let one of the vacant positions lapse or go vacant.
Okay.
That would be the way that we would avoid paying it. For many years, it's my understanding that the judiciary didn't always fill all the judge positions. There was one that was open. And so that budget style, that technique could be utilized at that time if there was no funding for it. We could leave that spot open as a vacancy.
And just to be clear, I support the 2 judges. I support the 3rd judge. I also support the additional folks for the state's attorneys and Matt Valerio. I just think we're in a post-pandemic, we're in an extreme situation, and the idea that, you know, I'm forgetting which northern county it was where we had a bunch of cases dismissed because they had been around too long. I think we're getting into a place where we have a collapse of certain parts of this access to justice system. So as painful as it might be on the bottom line, I think we have to bite the bullet and fund these positions all the way around the horn. So I know that John Campbell was talking about a lot of positions.
Yeah, I don't know, 25 is what it needs, but
But, you know, a proportionate number that we could add and then say move Matt.
Senator Sheep. You
No, I
started.
think, I did.
Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think that,
You're in favor?
you know, I am indeed in favor. You know, we did hear from the state's attorneys that, you know, this will have a positive impact on public safety, and addressing public safety, you know, doesn't necessarily always look like focusing just on jail or police. You know, so there's a lot of moving parts to it. And, you know, I would expect, and I'm assuming that the state's attorneys and the Defender Generals will, Defender General, plural, will be providing their request to appropriations, for however many positions that they're looking for, so.
I do, you know, what we talked about it a little earlier, Ben, about scheduling time for the judiciary, the court, I mean, the judiciary is the court, the judiciary, the state attorneys, defender general, and Department of Corrections to come in and talk about their budgets with us to try to understand how it's all gonna fit together. And I think, but I think this is a separate issue because we have to authorize positions for them to create. And my way of understanding what Senator Kitchell will do is say authorize the positions and we'll fund them in the budget. And so the bill will pass without the money, I guess, once it goes to approach. But I would like to get the bill to approach as soon as possible so that they can act on it with all of their other things that are going on in there. Anyhow, that, I think we need to get a redraft from Eric of the, if Terry and if the court administrator and Judge Zone would work with Eric Fitzpatrick to draft an amendment to switch over the judicial, authorize the switch from judicial master to the judge. And then we can vote on this next week.
Senator, it's my understanding that both the state's attorneys and the Defender General were aware of our request for 2 additional judges and factored that into their request, but I could.
Say what?
I believe that they factored in anticipation of our request for 2 additional judges, factored that into their request, but they would be the best people that was asked of them before, and I thought they said that they had factored that in, but.
Yeah, the governor's put it in the budget.
Okay, but for the state's attorneys and Defender General's office to,
We haven't heard from them yet, but we will. And I'm always reminded of Paul Hudson, you may remember, Paul, who at a meeting described how it all worked like a donut. If you add here, it comes out over there like a jelly donut, right? So if you add more prosecutors and no more defenders and no more judges, you have jelly over here. Paul was did a better job of describing it to me. He was one heck of a judge too that really took an interest in. I remember him coming down to Bennington to visit the War Depot back in its early days, and most judges don't visit. And he said, "Well, I'm not putting anybody someplace I haven't been, so."
He's a good man.
Or is he still alive?
He is, absolutely. He is. Mrs. Hudson, Pam passed away, but, several years ago, but, he's still alive.
Yeah. Is there anything else for this? I think we'll wait.
I'm just in closing, okay?
Okay, Bob.
Okay, I support the 2 positions. I believe that we're going down a slippery slope. And when I look at, when the state's attorneys and the Defender General comes in here, when I look at it, I'm gonna look at it as, what do we give judiciary? $708,000. I'm gonna be looking at those same numbers when it comes to these other entities, as far as how many positions can you get out of that $708,000? If we're gonna spend it here, we'll look at the other 2 spots. That's just my position on it, just let the senators know about it.
I don't
We gotta have a
disagree,
well-rounded.
but the good news is the governor's budget includes these 2 positions. Not the assistants, I don't think.
Although our proposal for the fiscal year 25 budget was included 2 new judges and the 10 judicial assistants, so that was taking that into consideration. If that's helpful.
I haven't seen the judiciary budget yet, but we'll obviously have meetings.
That'd be great.
Are there any other questions for Judge Sylvia
From my
or
soapbox.
I agree with you, Bob, we've got to fund the whole thing.
Equally.
So we'll get a redraft with Aaron and Judge will make it work, so we put in language to authorize the move, the change from the judicial master.
Thank you.
I can be in contact.
Pardon?
I can schedule a call for next week.
Senator, Dawback.
Senator.
Judge Dunn.
Committee assistants will schedule a vote on the bill.